Avoid people without hobbies at all cost.
I genuinely think that millennials got to have a way better time than Gen Z.
That's so lame. That's so cringe. And
I don't understand why people that have hobbies get made fun of so much.
Okay, do girls just like not have hobbies?
Realize most people in this generation don't even have a hobby at all.
What do people with no hobbies do? Like, you don't have anything you like doing, you have no interests?
Have you noticed people don't really have hobbies anymore?
I think you're extremely weird and you're probably really unhappy with your life.
TikTok corrupted hobbies. Does anybody remember a time where people were interesting? Like, I remember a time not too long ago where you could walk into Walmart, meet a guy named Joe, and his hobby was mud wrestling alligators for fun on the weekends. Now, when you walk into Walmart, the most interesting person you meet will go by the name Mean Man 420, and half of his personality consists of saying 6'7" and showing you Italian brain rot. And look, as much as brain rot tickles my brain, it makes it feel a little good, it gives it a little bit of a tingle, as much as it does that to me, there's only so much of it I can take before I want to. But what exactly happened to hobbies and society's personality between the time of Joe the Alligator Mud Wrestler and Meme Man 420? Well, it's a bit complicated actually. I'm not sure if TikTok happened. More specifically, a lot of tomfoolery, questionable decisions, and whatever this is, happened on TikTok that led to the demise of hobbies. In order to explain what I'm talking about, we'll need to go on a little bit of an adventure. Let's talk about the current state of hobbies. A couple of weeks ago, I finished up a long, hard day of farming. I fed the cows, harvested the crops, and had a farmer's hat that was absolutely glistening. I went inside feeling the cooling breeze of the air conditioner, and I felt proud of an honest day's work. And then I decided that in a few minutes, I was gonna indulge in one of my favorite hobbies, collecting gnomes. I almost have enough to invade a country. I'm gonna do it. Before that though, I decided to pull out my phone, open TikTok, and then this video slapped me so hard that I couldn't even tell you the difference between a biscuit and cornbread.
Nothing more I hate is someone with no passion, no hobbies, no interests, no nothing. So much to the world and so much things to be passionate about.
There were a couple reasons this video stood out to me so much. The first reason being that I admired the boldness of this guy saying that there's nothing he hates more than someone with no passion. Like if I were to sit down, pull out an empty sheet of paper, and write down a list of things that I absolutely hate, I don't know if that would be at the top of my list. I feel like I might put a few things before it. Maybe things like wars, meteors that could destroy the earth, and the common cold. All things I would put above it. But this guy, his priorities are so far above what I can even comprehend that there's not a single thing on this earth that he hates more than someone with no passion. Another thing that stood out to me was the idea of not having some kind of hobby or some kind of passion. The idea that our personalities are becoming so flat and boring that we're causing hobbies to go extinct. And there's one last thing that this TikTok made me think, and I'm gonna have to be honest with you here, okay? Gonna have to be totally honest. And promise me that you're not gonna think of me differently after I tell you this, but I lied to you a minute ago. When I told you that a few weeks ago I was farming, I actually wasn't. I just spewed a total bald-faced lie right to your face. I actually wasn't farming. I was sitting on my couch doing nothing. And the reason I say that is because upon seeing this TikTok, I began to wonder if I'm just another boring person with no personality. And if you've been on Hobby Talk recently, you probably have seen the same thought I had as a reflection of the same type of feeling many other people have. The feeling that we just don't have hobbies anymore. I mean, you really don't have to scroll too far before seeing videos like this.
Realize most people in this generation don't even have a hobby at all. Yes, you probably don't even have a hobby as well. Cause today I went around asking everyone, oh, what's your hobby? And they were puzzled like it was a engineering question. Now I started thinking to myself, I don't think I have hobbies as well. This is pretty bad. And I don't think cooking and going to the gym count because I feel like those are essential. I'm talking about like those like people talking about, oh, I do looming or oh, I draw. Oh, yeah, I just shoot horses for fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one has those these days. It's surprising. It's shocking.
The fact that this guy just casually lists shooting horses as a hobby is absolutely crazy to me. I can't believe I didn't think of that before. But really, this video is just another great example of the current state of hobbies. Many people feel like they don't have hobbies anymore, like they don't talk to anybody with hobbies, or are just even confused about what a hobby is. And I feel like that's actually something that I don't hear that many people talk about, but it's actually insane that so many people, including myself at times, don't even know what to describe a hobby as. We're so disconnected from hobbies that we can't even define what one is. I think the most basic, simple version of what a hobby is just something that you do for leisure instead of for work. But even with that definition, I feel like things can get a little bit weird, a little bit sketchy, like doom scrolling. You could do doom scrolling as a leisurely activity, but would you consider that a hobby? All I know is that is a philosophical conversation for another day. Overall, I think the general consensus is that we just don't have hobbies anymore. But why? What happened to us that caused us to collectively have less fun and become more boring? Well, let's talk about what killed hobbies. Now, asking what killed hobbies is like if you came up to me and you asked me what the difference between this gnome and this gnome is. There's so many different answers, there's so many different places we can start that I don't even know where to begin. But in this case, I think a good place to begin would be with this clip.
Is there anything worse than when someone asks you what your hobbies are and it's like, hobbies are what people used to do when they were bored. I haven't been bored since I got a phone. I like restaurants. Is that a hobby?
There's a few things about this clip that I want to talk about. One of them being that I think she said something in this clip that points to a fundamental misunderstanding of hobbies, and actually I think is a misconception that a lot of us have. But we'll come back to that in a moment. What I really want to dive into is when she talked about how since she got a phone, she hasn't been bored. And obviously when I'm saying that, I'm not talking about the phone itself, like the physical phone. Like when you buy a phone, it doesn't just get up in the middle of the night and crawl up to your ear and say, "You must give up all of your hobbies." I mean, mine did, but I just ignored it and it went away. Like I said, when I'm talking about phones are to blame for the death of hobbies, I'm talking about the apps inside the phone. Things like Instagram or TikTok or whatever this app is. The reason that I say this is because when you look at apps like Instagram or TikTok, the way they develop their algorithms are almost antithetical to how hobbies should work. I've talked about this more in other videos, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but basically the algorithms tend to reward the more aesthetic, trendy, and performative side of hobbies as opposed to the authentic side. Let's look at Book Talk, for example. Now, admittedly, I'm not really on Book Talk because I see a lot of videos that scare me and they completely terrify me, and I'm just utterly terrified. And I'm talking about videos like this.
He was wearing skinny jeans that hugged his muscular legs. No, he wasn't, but thanks.
That's right, manly muscular legs are my biggest fear. But as much as I want to keep showing you pictures of this, I want to get back to Book Talk and how the algorithm messed it up. Now when I think of Book Talk, I usually think of videos like this.
5 books so addicting, they're gonna keep you up reading all night long. Get ready to turn into a couch potato because once you start these, you will not want to do anything else for the rest of the day.
Okay, so obviously I'm not going to show this entire clip, mainly because I want to gatekeep these books that are so addicting they'll keep me up at night. Why? Because if I'm ever feeling down and I need a hit of something good, I want to have these books on standby. But yeah, that's what I think of when I think of the hobby that is reading. I think of people sharing books, talking about books, and doing some other book-related stuff, like making questionable bookmarks. I literally have no idea what's going through this person's mind. But it seems like the more genuine content that is made for the true love of the hobby is getting pushed back by the more aesthetic, crazy, and arguably less authentic content. Take this clip, for example.
In case anyone has not noticed, I have a lot of books. And I'm sadly running out of space. I have a lot of books here that need to go on the shelf. So I'm going to do a major deep cleanse / reorganization. I'm gonna go shelf by shelf and go through every book, get rid of things I don't want, and make sure everything is completely up to date in my spreadsheet.
So like she said, in case you haven't noticed, she has a lot of books, all books. Every single book that has been made, she has. There's even just books piled up on the floor. And I'm gonna make what might possibly be one of the most obscure references I will ever make. But does anybody remember the Halloween Town movies? In one of the movies, there's this guy that lives in this house of lost stuff. So anytime anyone loses anything, it magically appears in his house. I feel like we're in a situation like that here. Like anytime anyone prints a book, it ends up in her house. In situations like this, it seems like the hobby isn't reading books anymore, but instead buying them. So the sustainable joy and leisure you're supposed to get from doing a hobby is replaced by the unsustainable joy of overconsumption. And I can already hear people saying,
Jordan, that is a collection.
Which I can definitely see arguments for that. I'm not discounting that. But for me, basically the difference between overconsumption and collecting is the intent or purpose of why you're buying. If you're buying and intentionally curating, then I would say that leans more towards collecting. But if you're unsustainably and less purposefully buying, I would say that leans more towards overconsumption. In this case, while I'm looking at the mountains of shelves and seeing books just scattered about like my candy wrappers after a massive trick-or-treating haul, I would say that this probably falls more into the overconsumption side of things, which that leads me to the next hobby that I want to talk about, collecting. When it comes to hobbies, I think that the collecting side of TikTok, I was gonna say collect talk, but that just sounds really dumb, so I am not gonna say that. I think that this side is an example of two reasons that I would argue TikTok is corrupting hobbies. First, let me show you what I think of when I hear the word collection.
Before you say anything, yes, this is insane, you are correct, you are not wrong. Before we get into this video, I just want to say that I am very grateful that I can even make this video. A lot of these dolls here, I did purchase myself, but a lot of them were also purchased by my grandmother who spoiled me as a child.
Look, I will be the first to admit that I don't know anything about American Girl dolls. Like if you were to kidnap me, bring me to a dark and secluded location, and force me to guess the nationality of this doll, I'd probably say American because that's where I'm from, but I would not be 100% sure. I would think maybe it could be a different nationality. Anyways, when I hear the word collection, I think of things like this. I think of a sustainable, purposeful, and curated collection. Like as ignorant as I may be about the world of American Girl dolls, these all look different to me. I imagine there's some kind of purpose for each of them. And actually, the longer I look at them, the more uneasy I get. I don't want to look at them anymore. I actually didn't realize how terrifying these dolls were until now. But with TikTok, it almost seems like collections have been warped into some kind of excessive version of themselves. And that leads me to the first example of hobby corruption that I think this side of TikTok shows: overconsumption. It seems like collecting is being used as an excuse to overconsume. And again, with the way that the algorithm is, it seems like this type of content gets pushed to the top more and more. Take this clip, for example.
This is way too much.
It's not too much. I can stop whenever I want. It's not a problem.
So I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it seems like at this point you're getting way past the point of collecting and maybe getting into overconsumption territory. Mainly because when I see collections like this, I think you could make a compelling argument that the joy from this comes from the act of buying things and not from the act of collecting. Which obviously I can't see into this guy's mind. I'm not just like looking at this TikTok and seeing inside of his brain. I can't do that, so I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I would assume and hope that the joy comes from collecting and not buying, but I think that this serves as a good visual example of what I'm talking about. What would you say the difference between a collection and overconsumption is? On a very basic level for me, I would say intentionality and purpose is the difference. Another example of hobby corruption that I believe collecting TikTok is showing is performative identity. Pretty much meaning that the hobby becomes about flexing or showing off what you have. It's when your hobby becomes less about satisfying internal things inside of you and more about satisfying external things, like a person that does not live inside of you. You know what I'm trying to say. And with collecting, it seems like it's very easy to fall into the flexing side of it. The side where you're only buying things to impress other people or to make content about it. Here's what I mean.
Hi, I'm Lainey, also known as the Overconsumption Girl, and today we're going to be showing you every single product that I have. So let's do a little tour.
So again, to be clear, I'm not saying that this woman is falling into performative identity, but instead I just think this serves as a good visual example of what I'm talking about. She has all of these products, and I imagine there's not a realistic or effective way to use them all. And if she were to have a performative identity, she would be motivated by TikTok's algorithm to do more crazy stuff like this because the algorithm rewards it. So if that were the case, she would only be buying all of this stuff to make content on it or impress other people. Another reason that I say TikTok is corrupting hobbies is because of this whole cringe culture. You're probably familiar with it, but being called cringe is the worst thing that could ever happen to you, ever. It's the worst thing a human can call another human. And according to TikTok, everything is cringe. That applies to hobbies too. And because of our fear of being cringe, we've started to stray away from hobbies. We don't want to be bad at something because that's also cringe. We don't want to show interest in anything either because liking anything is also cringe. There was actually this video that went viral last year that I think really embodies this sentiment.
Listen, I don't have too much that I believe in, but I met this guy the other day and he said he took a skateboarding class as an adult. And I was like, okay, that should be illegal. That should be illegal. I'm sorry. A bunch of men in their late 20s and early 30s, people, not men, anyone, that age range, learning how to skate by a teacher.
The reason this video went viral though is because I think pretty much everybody disagreed with her, which I find pretty interesting. So let's talk about rebuilding our hobbies. So like I just said, about 2 seconds ago, it seems like everybody disagreed with this clip, and I found that pretty interesting. I found it interesting because even though we pretty much all disagreed with her, a lot of us act like we do agree with her. What I mean by that is for various reasons, a lot of us seem like we're afraid of having hobbies. Whether we're afraid of having someone call us cringe, or maybe the perfectionist in us is telling us that we can't be bad at something, or maybe we just don't want to open ourselves up to sharing something we created. So even though we all pretty much agree that hobbies generally aren't cringe, we still act like we're afraid of being perceived as such, especially by the internet. And if you happen to be one of those people that maybe you don't have a hobby, or maybe you pushed away a hobby that you once loved, let me reassure you of something. You're not boring, you're not uncreative, and you're not empty. Maybe you're just overwhelmed. Overwhelmed by the thought of being bad, or by the thought of sharing your creation, or maybe the thought of being cringe. Whatever that means. And at times, I felt like that too. But here's what's helped me. First, I realized that I didn't have to record everything. As a creative, I like making content about the things that I do. But at some point, I realized that not everything I do has to be for somebody else. Some things can just be for me. Second, I accepted and embraced that I will be bad at things. And I found a type of freedom in that. Like if I wanted to paint something, for example, there was this kind of freedom in knowing that I'm okay with being bad at it, and I'm just gonna paint anyway. And third, I reconnected with a childlike curiosity I have. I didn't want everything to feel perfect or transactional. I wanted it to be new and exciting. I wanted hobbies to feel like adventures where I could go in any direction, ask any question, and explore many different areas without the fear of failure. So if you are one of those people that feels like you don't have a hobby, or that you gave up one that you love, maybe it's time you start adventuring. Pick a hobby, do it this week, and do it for yourself. Don't post it, don't try to be good at it, just embrace the process. Because the truth is, you don't need a hobby that's perfect for the world. You just need a hobby that's perfect for you.